So welcome to the Animate IT guide. This forms part of a project in the Creative Skill Group where we need to create and edit an animation. Initially, we need to open up the Animate IT app and we can search for it by typing Animate IT. Now when we get here, we're taken to this particular landing page. And to start off our clip, we need to go to the timeline. What we're trying to do is make a clip of a smiley face that does a wink and then goes back to a smiley face. And we're going to use this with a background and some time frames, which we can then add to our website at a later time. So let's get started. First thing we're probably going to want to do is change our background colour. When we get there, we're now going to start initially with a drawing. And if you notice, by clicking the drawing, we now get our timeline at the bottom. And we want to click into the first frame. At this point, on the left-hand side, we have lots of different drawing tools to make our picture. Now, take your time when producing this. Try and make it as detailed as you can. For this guide, I'm going to do a relatively simplistic face, but obviously you can go into some more detail for it. So I'm going to start here with the oval tool, and I'm going to make the individual's head, and I'm going to again make an eye here with the oval tool. Now at this point, what I can do with this black arrow, I can select the shape that I've just drawn, and I can copy it and paste it with the Control-C, Control-V. Just like we would in many other applications. I'm then going to use my freehand pencil to draw maybe a small nose and a big mouth. And I'm going to have some hair on my particular character. And so that's the outline for my picture. I'm going to add a couple of little intricacies to it. I'm going to go back to my oval. But this time I'm going to choose a fill colour just for a couple of pupils, and again I'm going to select that, copy paste it, and I think I might do another oval just for the inside of the eye, this time with a white fill, and again I'm going to copy and paste. Now, for the hair colour, I wouldn't mind giving it a decent bit of green, so I'm going to use my mouse to select. And again, for my fill, I'm going to choose a particular colour. And maybe on the actual body, I might choose a particular colour, say a mauvey purpley, maybe a bit lighter. And finally, the mouth that I've made, I'd like him to have some white teeth. So this is my initial drawing, which we're then hopefully going to animate. And again, you can go into as much detail as you wish for this particular task. Well, at this stage, I'm now going to look in my timeline. And what I want to do is have this image on screen for a given amount of time. And I can reduce or increase the total time of my animation. I'm going to start with about 10 seconds here at this point, but we can come back to this. So here's my individual. Now what I want to do for this particular person that I've got here, this particular frame, I want copied so it's on screen for a few seconds. So I can hit duplicate and I can ask it to be placed after my selection. I could of course go to the end of the clip and I could go after every single frame that I've got. So I'm going to press here just a couple of times so I've got it maybe for 4 seconds where it's sitting there. Now at this point, I'm in fact going to do one final duplicate. But on this one, I'm going to edit what this frame will look like. So I've got myself 4 frames, all identical, but on the 5th frame, I'm now going to change this. And I'm very simply going to have the eye wink. So I'm going to get rid of the pupil, And what I'm going to add is a little bit of free drawing again. And again, with my selection tool, I'm going to choose the original image of the eye and maybe go back to around about my pinky purple colour that I initially chose. I think that's probably a little bit darker than the original, so I might lighten that up. And now I've got myself a winking image. And again, what I'm going to do is select that frame, and going up, I'd like to duplicate for a winking person, maybe for 2 seconds. Now at this point, I want to go back to my original non-winking face. Well, I've drawn it already. So rather than having to draw it again, in which case it would look different, I'm going to reduce my time frame right to the very end. I'm going to select one of my non-winking faces, and this time I'm going to duplicate it, but I'm going to duplicate it at the end of the clip. And again, I'm going to do that for 3 seconds. At this point, I've got 4 frames, all identically non-winking, 3 frames that are winking, and then 3 frames that are not winking. Now at the very end, I think I'm going to add some text, and I can choose all sorts of fonts. I think something quite bold will look quite nice, so I'm going to say goodbye. Now at this point, I think I'd like to add a background image. So I'm going to go back to my timeline, and here I have the option to choose a background image. I'm going to very quickly find an image that I can use, and I think for this example I might have some clouds. So I'm going to go onto the internet, I'm going to find a picture of some clouds, I'm going to save that picture somewhere where I can access it. In this case, I'm just going to very quickly save it onto my desktop. And now, when I'm back into my Animate, I can choose background image, I can navigate to where I save my clouds, and I can add that file. And if you notice, I've then got myself a background image timeline, and I've got myself my original pictorial timeline. I'm going to change my background image timeline so both run for exactly the same length of time. I could do that for the audio if I so wanted. I could also add some titles, and some titles could go maybe at the end, a scrolling credit, centered. In this example, I'm not going to add any titles because we simply want this as a quick example of an animation. At this point, I'm now happy that my drawing is complete. So I can go back and locate at the very top the clips icon. If I click that, I'll now be taken to my clip where I can play it, and I can see an example of my winking person. Now if I notice that, actually goodbye doesn't seem to stay on for long enough. It's a bit too quick. So I'm going to go back and edit my clip by simply clicking on the clip and edit clip. And I've noticed that this one really needs to be probably 3 or 4 seconds longer. So again, I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to go at the end of the clip maybe 3 times. So I've now got a total of 4. And again, I need to extend my cloud background to the same quantity. So navigating back to clips and playing my clip, I can now see it for a sensible amount of time. At this point, I can click back to my projects, where I'll now notice the project that I've just created. I think I might give it a name, animation. And at this point, I can export my movie. Will be a variety of formats. I'm going to keep to Windows Media. I'm going to choose the size a little bit bigger, so it's a decent bit of quality, but I do want it as a single video. I'm going to hit export, and again I'm going to choose somewhere for it to go. For ease of use, I'm going to save it onto the desktop. The computer will then export my working animation. And now, here's my animation. I can open up my animation, I can simply play it,